Good morning. Um, this is my first live. Welcome to Knit Until I Die. My name is Jamie. I'm going to be crocheting today because I can look up a lot more while I am crocheting than I can when I'm knitting. I don't think that we'll have anybody jump on the live currently. But that's okay. I also have it saved so that it'll do the replay. I am working with Karen Cotton Cakes, and which happens to be one of my favorite yarns. I am working on making a very special bag. I really like this current colorway that I am working with. I'm almost actually out of it. So let's see. It is called Calico Flowers. And this is what it looks like in the cake. And there you can see Karen Cotton Cakes. There's a project that you could do with Karen Cotton Cakes, and the pattern is actually on the label. You can also get that pattern off of yarnspirations.com. So this is machine washable and dryable, which I absolutely love. It's 60% cotton, 40% acrylic. It comes in a variety of colorways. I typically get mine off of Michael's, I think Maker or Maker Pro, whatever it is, because you can buy you have to buy a large amount, but you get them at a pretty decent price. So that's what I'm working with today. My hook is a size I. And I am getting close to being done with one cake. I had some leftovers from another project that I used to start this project because I really don't like leftovers. I don't like stuff just hanging around. I like to find projects and use up what I have. If I do have leftovers, they end up usually going into blankets. I make a lot of scrappy blankets with my odds and ends. I don't know. I just like making corner to corner blankets scrappy. You can do them the regular C to C. You can do C to C in the round. It's pretty versatile. You can do the normal double crochet C to C. You can also do a half double. You can do all kinds of things with it. I thought it would be a good idea to come to you guys today just for a nice Sunday crafting. My last video was pretty heavy, and I don't want to get heavy with anybody today. But I was wondering what you enjoy the most about your crafting. Do you enjoy the process? Do you enjoy the product? Do you enjoy the mindfulness or the mindlessness of crafting, depending on, what you're working on? I am definitely a product person. And so although I enjoy making stuff, the end product is what I'm really typically happy with. That's what I'm looking for, is to actually finish something so that I can use it. Let's see. What do we have else going on today? It's Sunday. It's May 5th. So happy Cinco de Mayo. If you celebrate, please be careful if you're out there drinking. Make sure you get a ride, because the police are out in force looking for drunk drivers, trying to stop accidents. I kind of missed May 4th, but May the 4th be with you. I kind of like the older Star Wars videos more than I like the new ones. And by older, I mean the original 3. Let's see. I think I enjoy Harrison Ford more in the Indiana Jones videos than I did in Star Wars. Now, he did a great job in Star Wars, but I still think that he makes a better Indiana Jones than Han Solo. What else? I was watching the latest Needles at the Ready podcast. And if you don't know about those two gentlemen, they're a hoot to watch and listen to. And I do enjoy their videos, but their videos tend to be a little long for me, because oftentimes they end up being like 2 hours or more. And although it is interesting and fun to watch and listen to them and their adventures, I think living around them might be a little bit too chaotic for me. The two tease each other back and forth, and you can tell that they have a lot of love and respect for each other, and they've been together a long time. And you can tell because of little things. Like in this latest video, Ray made a mistake, and it was a simple mistake, and I don't think anybody else would have caught it, but Kevin caught it. And Kevin made a very small little and Ray corrected himself. And they just kept going on, and that relationship where you've known somebody for so long that a look or a noise they make, it is like 1,000 words, because you know exactly what's going on. And when I was younger, and still sometimes now when I get a little excitable, my mother makes the turning down the volume motion, which tells me I'm being too loud. And that's helpful because I don't always know how loud I get. I'm hard of hearing, and I've been hard of hearing for quite a while. But when I get excited or have strong emotions, I get loud. It's easier to self-regulate now that I have hearing aids, and my hearing aids work real well. But I still have times where I need that visual to help me regulate. There's times when I ask mom a question, and I can tell just by the look in her eyes that she's not understanding, or it's just not the right time to talk to her about something. And that's okay. I just drop it and we'll come back to it later. Because my mom is she has dyslexia, and when she's tired or she's preoccupied, sometimes I'll say something or ask a question, and I can tell that it's just not landing just by the look in her eyes or her the look on her face. Like I know, and I don't push it. Because it's not that my mom is trying to be rude or condescending or anything like that. It's that for whatever reason, her brain is not on the same track that mine is. But what's funny is oftentimes we're on very similar tracks. Like the other night, I had watched a short, or was it a reel? No, I don't remember. But it was a short video, probably on YouTube or Instagram, about this cart. And my mom just absolutely loves to garden, and I think it's awesome. Don't leave me around plants because they won't survive around me. But my mother has a very green thumb, and I get to live around the pretty flowers, um, which makes mom absolutely very happy. And because it makes mom happy, it makes me happy because I want to see her happy. I want her to be able to live her life. Because our family dynamics have been awful weird for many, many years. And my mother has always been a peacekeeper and a healer, someone that, wants to take care of everyone. And I appreciate that. But I also know that she herself has not gotten time to herself a lot throughout the years. There's always been really big demands on her time. And so her going out and doing things is awesome. Going out with her gentleman friend, going out with another nurse that we've known for a long time, just doing things that she wants to do, going to the plant shop. Um, she always says that she doesn't need any more flowers. And then she'll find something that she really likes. And then if she doesn't get it, oftentimes other people like her gentleman friend or her nursing friend, they'll get it for her they'll get it for her, or they'll give her plants that maybe aren't doing so hot, and mom can rehab them. And mom also has a plant group that she how do I say this? It's on Facebook, and I know they talk on Facebook quite a bit, and share tips and tricks, and they sell flowers to each other. Um, but then I think one Saturday a month, they all meet up like at a coffee shop. And so mom's plan, I think next time, is to take some stuff with her so that she can give people cuttings, or even rooted plants to to kind of get them started with their own. We have a ton of holiday cactuses. There's Easter cactuses, Thanksgiving cactuses, Christmas cactuses, and now hybrid cactuses. And I think the hybrid that we have is like a Thanksgiving and Easter hybrid, but I could be wrong on that. Mom is the plant person. Um, but it's interesting to watch her face light up as she talks about her plants, and as she does her planting, and she is so excited. She's going to have um, what's it called? I think there's zinnias that she wants to plant outside this year. Grandma wouldn't ever let her have zinnias, and so this year, by goodness, we're gonna have zinnias. Um, our peonies are just going great guns, and I keep thinking we haven't hit the 15th of March yet, or I mean May, and we could still have a pretty cold frost, and that would nip them. It's going to be interesting sitting outside this year. Um, we got rid of, Mom got rid of the chokecherry trees. And she doesn't have anything against chokecherry trees. They were just old and their roots were really superficial. And so, a good 60, 70-mile-an-hour gust come in, they could fall over onto our fence and break through, or they could have hit the neighbor, gone the other side into the neighbor's driveway and hit her vehicle. So, even though Grandma thought that they provided so much shade, which they didn't, um, it's kind of interesting to walk out the back door and they're not there, because my entire life we've had chokecherry trees leaning over the fence. Um, so it'll be interesting this summer because we're gonna have to sit kind of on the side of the house for shade, which we used to do anyways. Um, we got the pine tree trimmed up, which um, for one of our dogs that has anxiety, that was a hard day because he couldn't go outside and see what they were doing and being involved and try to protect his house and his yard. But it was a nice couple that Mom got to meet, and they worked on the tree and got it cleaned up. Apparently, it's the largest um, pine tree that, or blue spruce, that they've seen in town, and it doesn't have any like beetle rot or anything else going on with it. It's actually a very, very old and very healthy tree. So I'm kind of glad that we got it cleaned up. I don't know what we're going to do about it because it's it's a nasty tree. The sap and the pine needles and the pine cones and everything else that comes out of that tree is just awful. It gets all over the yard, all over the dog's paws. Um, and although it's kind of nice to have the shade from that tree, it's just a pain in the butt to clean up after. And with all of my health issues, I'm not the one that has to do it anymore. That falls on Mom. And it's just, it would be nice if we didn't have that tree, because then Mom would have, that would open up an entire garden. I think it's like 11 by 14 or something like that, space for gardening. And I guarantee you, she would put all kinds of plants and different things out there, and they would grow. Like I said, Mom's got the green thumb. But as it is right now, the soil is just not great for growing. and the pine tree just sucks up so much water. Um, we found out that we need to have our sewer main redug and get a new one put in. And we're not going to try and backfill the old one. I think we should, because I don't want that junk coming back into the house. But I'm not the plumber. Um, because our main line was the first one on the block. And so a bunch of other properties were tied into our main and are still tied into our main. It doesn't mean that they have to get theirs redug and get their own main. But we're going to get our own main where no one else can tie into our line, because that's now illegal in our town. And that should help us with a lot of our plumbing issues. I think we have a gentleman that's going to be mowing the lawn this year, which is just fabulous because there's not much lawn to mow. We have a lot of rock that has been laid kind of exterior along the on the parkways between the sidewalk and the street. That used to all be grass, but we turned it into rock because it was so hard and so dangerous to try and mow and keep up, because we live on the corner of a very busy street. And there's constantly accidents, either one block south of us or one block north of us, during the summertime, because the street isn't straight. It has a bend in it, and it's a pretty strong bend, I guess I would say. And so people out there going too fast, they hit that bend, and then accidents happen. We used to have cars that would end up in our front yard. Now that the rocks are in, we really haven't had that problem, knock on wood, so far. I'm really glad about that. Usually that happens towards the end of July during Cheyenne Frontier Days, because people are from out of town and they're going too fast or they're drunk, and then they go off the road. I kind of wish that they would find a way, without moving the houses, to kind of slow traffic down, or let people know that there's a bend up ahead, so that people are not, trying to drive 40, 50 miles an hour up the street when they're only supposed to be doing like 30. One of our neighbors has had issues with people landing in his yard, their vehicles, and then people, if they can't get their car going, they just abandon their car and run off. So what he did was he went and bought really big boulders and had these massive boulders put out in the yard to protect the house so that no one would actually hit their house. Oh, my grandma hated that. She thought that that was so ugly. But where we live, I think that that's a good idea, to try and protect your home, your property. Because there's been instances of cars driving into people's homes um, on the main road. Um, the side street that we're on is relatively quiet. And since we've lived on this street basically my whole life, we know the neighbors. Trying to think. Um, Grandma was the oldest living neighbor, and she'd been here the longest. She and Papa bought this house in 1975, and they completely, um, I don't want to say gutted it because that's not the right term, but they tore out all the wallpaper and all the paint and all the carpets, and they refinished. It has a really nice wood beams out in the living room, no dining room, and it has a really nice fireplace, all that stuff. They completely redid it all. The mirror that is over our fireplace actually is part of the original mirror that was in the house. There was a floor to ceiling mirror on the other side of this wall. And when they took it down, it broke into smaller pieces. And one of those smaller pieces was the right size to fit over the fireplace. And so that's where it still sits today. We have 18, I think it's like an 1860s or 1880s pump organ out on the front porch. And if you're interested, drop me a line. We are trying to sell it. It came out of a church, but I can't remember if it came out of Montana or Nebraska. And Grandma had it completely refurbished and, got it back to where you could play it. My grandmother was one that's always invested when she could into antiques and collectibles because, she thought that was a way to pass on money to the family. And now a lot of the stuff that she invested in really isn't popular. And she has collections that it's going to be difficult for Mom to find someone that wants to buy them. We have glassware collections. We have light fixture collections. We have light shade collections. We have all kinds of stuff like postage stamp collections. We have money collections. We have print collections. What else do we have? Just all kinds of stuff. We have a built-in kind of sort of bar downstairs that's not really a bar. It's what would have sat behind the bar at like a drugstore or a apothecary. And so it's this massive, massive wood and glass cabinetry. And it all came out in one piece from a drugstore, but I don't remember where the drugstore was at. But Grandma got it and had it installed in the house. And she has all different kinds of glassware collections in there. But if people wanted to take that thing out, they'd have to work really hard because it's in for the long haul. I guess I can talk about our dogs. I am a big dog lover. We have had a couple of cats throughout the years, but I'm not really. Cats are a bit too independent for me. I like Velcro dogs. I happen to have a very old Velcro dachshund. He's a black and tan doxy, although you can't tell anymore because he's basically black and white at this point. He's 15 years old. He is definitely my Velcro baby. Goes pretty much everywhere with me except for doctors. Well, even sometimes doctor's appointments, he'll go with me. Um, he loves to go for car rides, and everywhere and anywhere I'm at is kind of where he wants to be for the most part. Um, he's my kind of like my heart and soul dog. He was diagnosed with arthritis about a year after I was diagnosed with inflammatory arthritis. He was um, diagnosed with liver issues um, maybe a year after I found out about my liver issues. Um, what else? Oh, he now has kidney issues, kind of like I have kidney issues. So yeah, he is just my little mini me. His name is Watson, and he is quite a doll. My other dog is also a black and tan dachshund. Um, you can tell there's a theme. And his name is Humphreys. He's 6 years old, and he is my neurotic anxiety dog. Um, and I really enjoy hanging out with him when he, chooses to hang out with me. He's way more independent than little Watson. Um, Even though he's quite a bit younger than Watson, he's also um, quite a bit larger than Watson. Overseas, like in the UK, they have 3 sizes of dachshunds, and in the US, we have 2. I think Humphreys is a UK dachshund because he's kind of the middle size. He's definitely not really a mini, but he's not really exactly a full size either. He's kind of right in between. Um, but both Humphreys and Watson love going to work with me. We also have Miss Bella, and Bella is a Chiweenie. She's a Chihuahua Dachshund cross. And I didn't know until just recently she can howl. She has kept that secret for years. She's 8 years old. We got her just before she turned a year old, and during that time in my life is really fuzzy because I was really really sick at that time, and so other than coming home from the hospital one time and having an entire pack of prednisone that I needed to be taking over several days, that I left it down, which is my fault, 100% my fault. She got into it and got sick, and so she had to go to the vets. And I felt really bad about that because this was mom's brand new dog, and I'm killing mom's brand new dog. Um, Bella and Watson get along awesome. Bella and Humphreys get along awesome. Watson doesn't mind Humphreys, but sometimes when food is involved, Humphreys doesn't particularly care for Watson being around. Um, we are seeing a behavioralist for Mr. Watson, not Watson, for Humphreys. You can probably assume where we got Watson's name from, Sherlock and Watson. Humphreys I used to watch this show called Are You Being Served, out of Great Britain. And I can't remember when the show was actually aired on TV first. But Mom and I used to watch that Saturday evenings. It was on Friday or Saturday. It was on PBS, and it was really enjoyable for us. So, one of the main characters is Mr. Humphreys. And Mr. Humphreys is a very proud and um, out there gay man. And he's always so fun to watch. You know, that actor and some of the ad libs, very, very smart. Um, so yeah, we have 3 dogs. Mom named Bella because Bella is hers. Bella came with a different name, but it was not one that Mom felt was appropriate for her. Didn't really fit her or her coloring or her personality. Miss Belly is the bright side of the sun. She loves everybody. She doesn't know a stranger. She doesn't know a stranger animal. She just gets along with everybody. And she loves to go for car rides. Um, she's mom's Velcro dog, to be honest. She wants to do whatever mom is doing. Humphreys likes to be out and doing stuff with mom um, when she lets him, because he just enjoys being outside doing stuff. He enjoys going for walks and just being out and patrolling his yard. And he gets out there and he hollers at the neighborhood to let them know he's in his yard. So, you know, they better not come to the yard. But then when someone that he knows comes up, the barking changes, and that tail starts a waggling, because he just doesn't know how to greet people nicely. Part of that's his anxiety, and part of it is that during the pandemic, we didn't have anybody around, like, at all. Um, I dealt with a lot of issues during the pandemic and was in and out of the hospital several times. And so Humphreys got to the point where he'd rather spend time with my mom because she's more active and she's out doing stuff. And he likes to just be out doing stuff with her. Bella will be out there till she gets cold and then she comes in and crawls in bed with me. Watson stays pretty close to me. Um, I love taking my boys to work with me. Um, it actually helps my anxiety quite a bit to have them around, to have my knitting or my crochet with me. Even if I don't get to work on it, just having it with me really, it really makes me feel good and kind of helps keep my anxiety to some extent lower. What else? I used to be just a voracious reader, and I'm not really a massive reader anymore, but I just got this book, and it's called Knitting Bag of Tricks by Patty Lyons. And it was recommended by another YouTuber that I watch, and I can't remember his last name. His first name is Mark. And I want to say he's in Connecticut or Massachusetts. I could be wrong. But he's a knitter. He started out as a crocheter and has, really gotten into knitting, which really resonates with me. So I did go and get that book. There's a workbook that's kind of like that goes along with that particular book that's coming out in October, and I've already pre-ordered that, just because it's something that I'm interested in. And I take the book in small chunks, uh, and really just try and think about what she's trying to convey. And I have already learned quite a bit from it. It makes more sense than when I've asked other YouTubers questions, because usually what I get is that, oh, well, I'm twisting my stitches, or I get that I'm knitting wrong. Um, and I'm not knitting wrong, I'm just knitting differently. And that, um, her explanation of it um, made a lot of sense for me. I'm not sure what it looks like to you guys on your side, but I am a right-handed knitter and crocheter, but I always hold my yarn in my left hand, and I tension my yarn the same way no matter if I am doing a knit project or a crochet project. It's just how I learned how to tension my yarn. And I figure as long as it works for me, it's not wrong. Same thing for knitting and crocheting. As long as it works for you, you're not doing it wrong. You're just doing it differently. Everything from, how you hold your hook or your knitting needles, to how you tension, to how you hold your project, or control the weight of your project as you work on it. All those things are, to me, very individualized. And sure, there's people that came up with the quote unquote correct way. Doesn't mean it's the only way. Doesn't mean that their way will work for you. I have seen people that are English style knitters, and so they control their yarn in their right hand. And when they go to crochet, they crochet just like they knit. I knit like I crochet. So what's the difference? The difference is how I feed the yarn to my hook or my needles, and how I wrap that yarn around my hook or my needles. It's much easier for me to do what most people think is a twisted knit stitch. But the thing is that when you're knitting in the round, and you're knitting, how do I say this? Just doing stockinette in the round, it doesn't matter which way you wrap your stitches, because they're all going to come out looking the same. It does, it can, how you wrap your yarn can change where your leading leg is on your needles. And technically how much yarn you're using, because if you wrap it one way, you use less yarn than if you wrap it the other way. but whatever works for you works. What else? I've probably mentioned before, we live in Wyoming. We live in the capital city, which is Cheyenne. And most of the time it's pretty fun living in Cheyenne. Well, I guess comfortable to live in Cheyenne for me. Mainly because I don't do well around a lot of people, and yet I like certain amenities like Walmart and getting your groceries delivered, which is helpful for me because I don't drive anymore. And then I can get what I want without sending a list with mom. Mom gets what she wants, and I get what I want. What else? So back to Needles at the Ready. I forgot what I was going to tell you guys. I was watching their podcast, their most recent podcast, and they had found a maker that does interchangeable crochet hooks. Now, for me, I like my old metal crochet hooks. I have a ton of them. But I was thinking sometime when I get some money put together that would be a nice present for my mom because my mom does crochet. I think that it might be easier for her to hold the hook the way that these interchangeables are made. They're wooden and metal, and it's a father-daughter duo out of eastern, somewhere more east than Wyoming. And I went on and looked at their I think they're in the Northeast, but I could be wrong. Looked at their particular crochet hooks and their handles and the sets that they have, and they're $100 right now. But I think that would be something that mom would enjoy, that would be more comfortable for her because they're not heavy, but they're a little weighted, and they're thicker than trying to hold on to a typical crochet hook. I've been using these, I guess I can say some of these I've had for decades, because I have. And I have some that don't even have markings on them. They're so old. I got them from my great-grandmother, and so, yeah, I'm just used to these. I enjoy using them. I like the feel. They're not too heavy. I have basically like a knife grip, and I can't do the pencil grip thing. It just is not comfortable for me. I learned the knife grip when I was growing up, and that's what I've stuck with basically my whole life. But those crochet hooks, and I think if I remember correct, they make pens and some other stuff. It is NE as in Northeast, Wood, WOOD, and then Works, WORKZ.com. And they have some very beautiful pieces. Of course, right now is not the time for me to be spending money. Um, but we'll just continue on doing what we got to do, just like everybody else. I guess I can show you where I'm at in my knit project. This has been really kind of flying by. Um, let's see here. So the first night I started it, I finished the collar. It's a folded collar. And then I could start on the, don't know if you can see that, but it's a 6-stitch raglan. It's a really pretty detail. However, with the yarn that I'm using, it's so busy that detail seems to kind of be more muted. But that's okay. This is the Never Sweater by Kopi Kelly. And this is my, this yarn is from Knit Style Yarns. And it has a ton of different colors in it. The camera's not picking them up real great, but it's many shades of purple, from royal purple all the way down to a light lilac, and then some pinks in there. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And I am working on my increasing stitches so that I have room for the arms. And it's grown quite a bit since I started it. I'm about at a point where I need to try it on again and make sure that I'm still on the right track. But I'm really happy with that. I had posted about knitting on that yesterday, and one of my cousins had asked me on Facebook, well, do you crochet? And it's like, yep, I do both. I like both. And so because she asked, I thought, oh, I have that bag I want to work on. And so I picked it back up and did quite a bit of work on it last night. I just had the bag. I just had the band that runs. I have this on both sides. The band that's going to go around my neck. I had that completed, and now I'm putting on the sides of the bag, and I'm trying to decide if I want to put in like a zipper closure, or if I just want to do kind of like a fold over closure, like a messenger bag. I guess I'll kind of figure that out when I get there. This has almost an entire, well, actually, it has an entire cake of Karen Cotton cakes in it already. If you add in all the other stuff that I've already, the odds and ends that I use to make the band the band that'll go around the neck. Let's see here. I have 2 more cakes that I can use in this, and hopefully I won't need any more. If I do need more yarn, I have a white that I will use on the edges to kind of tie everything back together. What else on a Sunday morning can I talk about? I know. Uplift. So, Uplift is a interesting nonprofit. Uplift works with children, special needs children across the state of Wyoming and their families. Uplift does a ton of advocacy work. It does parent trainings. It does groups that allow parents to meet up and um, I don't want to say commune because that's not quite the right word, but where the parents get to lead the discussion and where parents that have a child that I'm just going to use this as an example. Like, let's say we have two families that have both both families have a child that's nonverbal autistic, and one child is younger than the other family's child. The family with the older child can not only empathize and sympathize with the family of the younger child, but they can also give that family um, a lot of resources, and they truly can say and mean, yes, I have been where you are right now, and it will get better. Or they can just say, yes, we've been where you are and we understand. And that is probably one of the most important things for families, is to be able to find people that understand where they're coming from. Special needs families, a lot of times, are in some ways alienated from other families. Um, because if you do not have a child with a severe diagnosis, it's very difficult for you to truly comprehend what that family is going through when they have to pick that child up early from school, 4 or 5 days a week. And so that child is not getting all of its educational instruction like they're supposed to. It's federally mandated in the United States how much education hours each child gets. Like, the school doesn't get to decide that. The other side of the coin is the parent that has to take that much time off of work to go and get that child and take that child home and be there with that child. Oftentimes that person cannot work a full-time job. And even when they try to work, there are times where they'll be fired because they had to take so much time to be with their child or their children. That means that a lot of special needs families usually end up, not all, but there are quite a few that end up um, at or below the poverty line. And so if you've never had to deal with that, and you've never had to deal with the pressure of all those doctor's appointments and psych appointments and everything else that they have to follow through with, there's just no way that we can understand what that's like. We can empathize with them, but it's different when it's coming from someone who has truly walked that walk, that has the lived experience. Um, because when you're getting information from professionals, a lot of times that lived experience is ignored. It shouldn't be, because that lived experience is very important. It's in a way, I think it's a lot like the oral traditions of like First Nations or Native American tribes or First Peoples, because those oral traditions taught and still do teach quite a bit. Um, and having that lived experience is in some ways even more important than the professionals, because a professional can give you a diagnosis. A professional can tell you what should happen. But the problem is that professional oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, doesn't have the lived experience to understand the stress and strain that these families are under. Um, it's common for special needs children to come from single parent homes or from homes that are multi-generational. And the reason is that it's difficult raising a neuronormative child, 100%. But it's even harder to try and raise a child that's not neuronormative, a child that is so different from their peers that maybe they don't even know their age appropriate peers, or they may not know what age appropriate behaviors they can have or should have. So when you have to work with your beloved child and that child does not fit societal norms, it's rough for those families. It is so rough for those families. And it is very difficult in Wyoming, in some places in Wyoming, to get the appropriate education and the appropriate services for your child, which is where Uplift comes in. Uplift helps families get what they need and advocate for their children in the school system, as well as helping get referrals to providers that can help get a diagnosis or help when you already have a diagnosis, but something is still wrong and not working right. A lot of these children, not all, but there's quite a few that suffer. Maybe I shouldn't say suffer, but they deal with insomnia. And that means that a parent has to be up with them all night long when they're up all night long. Night after night after night. It's kind of like having, in some ways, having your very first infant and, checking on them like every few minutes because you're worried that they might need something or whatever. And, but these children aren't infants. And just because maybe they're nonverbal right now, that doesn't mean that they're not smart, or that they don't have a higher IQ. It means that for whatever reason, they're not able to verbally converse with you. That doesn't mean that they can't use assistive technology to communicate with you or sign language, because they probably can. But when you have that child or those children that are special needs, you know that you have to keep pushing and you have to keep fighting for them. And that every time they go to like a new school or they get a new teacher, you have to make sure that whoever the professional is, make sure that they're aware of your child's needs and the expectations that you expect that professional to follow, the IEP, the 504, the behavioral plan, whatever it is. And then when, I should say with, then if that they are not following through with like the IEP, 504, or behavioral plan, then sometimes you need someone to help you advocate for your child. And that's really what Uplift does. That's a big part of what Uplift does. So Uplift is a nonprofit based in Wyoming. And I talk about it because I work there. I am passionate, not because of me having a child, because I don't have any children, but because I can relate not to the parents, but to the children. I have bipolar. I was diagnosed a long time ago. I also have PTSD, anxiety, depression, major depression, and I've had these disease processes since I was very, very young. My mother, who was in the medical field, recognized that I needed help and got me in with professionals. But the professionals, how do I say this? They didn't want to give me a diagnosis that would follow me for the rest of my life. But without that diagnosis, you can't get the services you need or the help that you need, which can create more problems later on. And so, although I'm not equating my mental health struggles and my physical health struggles with what those children go through per se, I can sympathize and empathize with the children. I have multiple doctor's appointments every month. I have multiple, like physical therapy, sometimes OT appointments. I have work, but there are days where I am too sick to go to work. I work for Uplift, by the way. And so I can empathize with those children. I can empathize with the medically, how do I say this? Children that have higher medical needs, because I've had higher medical needs for years. I understand children that have G-tubes and ostomies and different things, and I can empathize and sympathize with them. And I get really aggravated when I hear stories of professionals doing things incorrectly, especially to a medically fragile child that can't communicate their needs or wants themselves. Like, that's just horrific. I mean, and like, let's say that a teacher, whether it was on purpose or on accident, pulls out a child's G tube. That pulling it out without deflating it and whatnot, that hurt. Like, I guarantee you that hurt bad. Then that child needs to go. Sometimes the parents can put the G tubes back in if they're told about it right away. But if they're not told about it right away and things kind of get inflamed and close down or just close down naturally, the parents may not be able to get that G tube back in or the new one in. So then they have to take the child to the emergency room to get that G tube put back in. And so you're talking about pain for that child. You're talking about keeping that child awake longer than you should, because very rarely can you go to an ER and get out under 2 hours, in our area anyways. And for someone to not understand that you've caused a child pain and that pain doesn't just stop because you ripped something out, but it continues on for hours and hours and hours because we have to get a new G tube back in, so that that child can receive the fluids and nutrients that they need. If a child needs a G tube, it is medically necessary. And if you are not that child's provider of medical services, keep your damn hands off. Same thing with ileostomies, colostomies, urostomies. Do not pull on them. Do not try and remove them, because you may get a lot of unwanted CRAP on your hands, and you're probably causing that child pain. And if you take the wafer off, then that means that a brand new wafer and a brand new bag have to be put on. And like, let's be real, medical supplies are not cheap at all. My ostomy supplies, if I had to buy them out of pocket without insurance, holy moly, it's over $1,000 a month for my ostomy supplies. $1,000 a month. Don't mess with people's medical supplies. Like, it's not just that you could hurt someone, but you're costing them money. Like, I mean, realistically, you're costing them a lot of money. Sorry, I went on my rant. But anyways, Uplift is a nonprofit, and they do a lot of good work. I'm just the secretary. But I can totally empathize and sympathize with these kids, because it's not easy being a child with special needs. It's not easy being an adult with special needs. It's not easy being a medically fragile child. And it sure as hell is not easy being a medically fragile adult like myself. Okay. I said I wasn't going to be a Debbie Downer, and then I was a Debbie Downer. I'm sorry. What else can I talk about to kind of bring things? If you want to learn how to crochet, there's all kinds of great YouTube tutorials out there. Even if you want to learn to knit, there's a ton of great YouTube tutorials. But specifically for knitting and crochet, the Crochet Crowd has knitting and crochet videos. They often, most often follow a pattern that is from Yarn Inspirations, which every pattern that you download from Yarn Inspirations is free, 100% free. And then you can follow Mikey, who is the face of the Crochet Crowd. He's one of the designers. He is the teacher. He's the content creator. Like, he is just, he's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And he's always working on something. He and his husband, Dan, live up in Canada. I can't remember what part anymore. But Mikey and Diva Dan are another duo that are fun to watch and listen to. And Mikey's the one that does the tutorials. So if you want to learn how to crochet, or you want to learn more about knitting, that's where I would recommend that you start, because he's going to teach you how to knit or crochet, and he's going to teach you how to read the patterns. He's going to teach you fundamentals of structure. He's going to teach you the fundamentals of reading diagrams, and really, he's going to give you the confidence to do whatever you want to do. Like, Mikey he's awesome. So, and that's like, I like watching Mikey's shorts on YouTube. I don't really follow him or the Crochet Crowd on Facebook anymore, mainly because Facebook is, for me, for friends and family. So yeah, I follow them on YouTube, and they're just called the Crochet Crowd. If you want to listen to a really good knitting podcast that tends to run a little long, I would recommend Needles at the Ready podcast. If you just put in Needles at the Ready, it'll pop up. It's a pretty popular one. So yeah, I hope that you have a great rest of your day. And yeah, talk to you next time.